Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Nana Malone.
Yes. Nana is a amazing romance author. We talk about kind of her process and her journey. We talk about writing as an author of color. She has this great Instagram audience and she does Instagram lives every week. We talk about those. So it was a fun interview and a really important interview, I think.
Yeah. She has some really great ways to support authors of color. Very practical and things that anyone can do. Anybody can participate in.
Yes.
So it's really good. And we also talk about covers.
Yes, we do.
I love talking about covers. Any kind of covers. I'm a sucker for that. Too. So we do that. So it's really good. So
it's a fun interview. Yeah. So what's been going on with you?
Well, this week I have been uploading audiobooks to sell direct through BookFunnel and Hips, a couple, and it's taken it to. So this is something that I would love to hand off, but I want to do it myself first, so I understand how to do it.
Yeah.
So it took me all day, but I got 4 or 5 of them up. And one tip I learned, I was listening to Damon Courtney on BookFunnel about BookFunnel on I think it was the Six Figure Author podcast, and he said that you can bundle things on BookFunnel and just have them delivered as a bundle. So like one thing that was slowing me down was like, I need to get a cover for the books 1 through 3, 4 through 6. And he said, when you set up the delivery action, you just choose however many books you want to put in there or audiobooks. I was like, I can do that. So
that's great.
I thought that was a great tip. So you can do that with audio or ebooks.
Right.
So I've been loading those up so I can kind of test how that's going. I'm going to do a bundle of books 1 to 3 of the historical series and price it at about, I think, $25, which would be about 30% off of my direct sales price because they get it cheaper if they buy it from me.
Right.
So I'm testing it to see if that works.
Oh, you'll have to let us know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working on that. And then I got my edits back for the historical.
Yes.
Haven't even touched them.
Don't blame me.
But the editor liked them. So that makes me feel better.
That's good. That's good. That's great.
So it's been work week,
Yeah.
And I started on the mystery. Well, I didn't start on it. The Mystery Reader's Journal. It's a lot of fun. So that's a totally new project, and it'll come out in 2022.
That's something you've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah. So I think it'll look really cool.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
So what about you? What are you doing?
Just more of the same, more of the same, working on this book. I'm going to start the edit, my edits. And but what I really want to talk about is in the Wish I'd Known Them for Writers Facebook group, we're going to do a Zoom call. So if you're not a member of the group, become a member of the group. And then we're going to do a Zoom call the 27th of April at 7 p.m. So I know that leaves out 7 p.m. Central Time or Central Daylight Time, Texas time, and but I know that leaves out people in the UK and some other places. But if you have questions, submit them to us. We will answer them, and then we'll have the recording live after the fact. So
we'll have it we'll post it in the group, so you can go into the group and read. And then if people are interested and they like it, then we could do another one a different time. Earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So we could do that like maybe during the summer or something.
Right. So I'm excited about that. I also did a thing this week in the Facebook group. I gave away an hour of coaching. Yes, y'all, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. An hour of coaching. And so that's fun. And I'll do that. I picked the winner, and she and I are going to get together the first week of May. So awesome. That was really fun. So anyway, that can all be found in the Wish I'd Known Them for Writers Facebook group. So that's what's going on here.
Yeah. So we should get to Nana's interview.
Yes, we should.
All right, here we go. All right, today we are super excited to have Nana Malone with us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, we're so excited you're here.
Yes,
I'm
we
so
are.
happy. I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's
Yes.
get down to it.
We have lots of good questions. So
Well,
let me read your bio real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestselling author Nana Malone writes sexy, feel-good romance and loves all things romance and adventure. That love started with a tattered romantic suspense that she borrowed from her cousin. It was a sultry summer afternoon in Ghana, and Nana was a precocious 13. She's been in love with kick-butt heroines ever since, and with her overactive imagination and channeling her inner Buffy. It was only a matter of time before she started creating her own characters.
I love that. So how did you get into writing?
It was, it's funny. Way back when in the Paleolithic era of romance, a little book called Bridget Jones's Diary, the summer that it came out. And it was the hot ticket. And at the time I was working this god awful PR job in New York City. And everybody on the train was reading it, on the bus was reading it. I couldn't get away from this book. And so one afternoon, I hoofed it from my office on over to Member Borders, rest in peace.
Yes.
And I grabbed one off of the front, like they have the front stacker in the bookstore. And I picked one up and I was reading it all the way home. And it really occurred to me that I connected with this like white British lady, but it sounded like me. It sounded like how my friends and I talked. It sounded exactly like me. It was funny. It was self-deprecating. And I was like, I can do this. It was really my first connection to voice. Now I've been reading forever and loved romance and loved at the time what was chick-lit, and I loved it all, but I never really connected with writing my own stories. So I was just that, girl with 5 books in her backpack, in case I finished one, God forbid I was
you'd be without.
Always need a spare, right?
Exactly. Right. And so, but it was the first time I connected to like a story in terms of the voice and was like, that sounds like me. And so as soon as I finished that book, I dragged out a laptop and started tapping away at a story. I didn't know anything about conflict, motivation, or goal. I knew nothing. I knew nothing of nothing, not even a smidgen. But
Me either. Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's how I started. But that one little book, granted. And then it took me 8 years to finish that first book, which was, 8 years is a long time, but I went to grad school, got married and all that good stuff, and left that PR job, thank God. But so I finished that first book, and a very, very dear friend and mentor of mine, especially in the early days, she looked at me and she was like, "This is great. So amazing. I'm so proud of you. Now write another one." Yeah. And the next one took 6 months. The next one took considerably less, 3 months, not even, I think. And then I've gotten faster since then. So that's how it started.
How many books do you put out? Like a year?
A year? My publicist, if she's listening, will be like, say 6, but usually it's 10.
Ooh,
yeah.
Wow.
9 to 10.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, it's not bad. Don't do that. Nobody should do that. That's a crazy thing. Cause I'm always like, I have this idea and I'm like, oh yeah, let's just do it. And instead of moving something off the plate, I just add it to. So I need to get better about not doing that. But so 9 to 10, but I think next year really, I say this every year, so I'm probably lying, but I'm going to decrease the number.
Okay. Well, we'll have you back next year and see if that works.
Oh no, you're going to call me on it. Oh,
hold you accountable.
Yes. No, that's perfect. Hold me accountable. I love it.
That's funny. Well, so did you start writing in romance? Was that what you started with and what you stayed with?
Yes. I just believe that all books are better with kissing. Really, it's just, I need kissing. The thing is, I read everything, and I have a real soft spot for mystery thrillers. I was the only 9-year-old with her own Agatha Christie complete collection. The big tome.
Yes,
and
you're my kind of girl.
Print with a really thin vellum-like paper.
Yes.
I had that book and I was in it, and I was like, yeah. So I tend to be happiest when I'm including some kind of adventure or suspense element. Like I'll be like, yeah, seems like a rom-com. And then there's a kidnapping.
Yeah. I remember you saying that. We went to a retreat last year together, and she said that, and I just cracked up.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. It's like I can't help it. I'm like, but wouldn't this be better if there was a shooting? I feel like this would be so much better if someone just got like mugged. But yeah, when I'm writing, I need the kissing. I need, because like, there's nothing worse than when you watch a movie and like there's a hot dude and there's a hot girl and like you can feel the tension and then they just don't go there. It's the worst.
It's the worst. I hate it. Yeah. I hate it. I don't hate books without kissing. I just don't enjoy them as much.
Yes.
Yes. What's your favorite?
That's the key. I like kissing.
What's your definition of success, and has it changed over time?
I think it's definitely changed. I mean, in the early days, my definition of success was like have a book out, release. I was a former project manager, so I love setting goals. So I'm like, release 3 books this year, and earn a certain income level. Right. But then I was like, but that was easy. Like, not easy, but like I managed it, and I didn't die. So then I would like keep upping the ante. For anyone who's done Strengths Finders,
yes,
I'm an achiever, number 1. So achievers like to move a bar. We're like, that was cute. Now I'm going to climb Everest. So for me, I mean, these days success, like I feel most accomplished. Like there's always like a monetary number. And I've always said, I was like, listen, I just want to be successful enough to like send my kid wherever she wants to go to college and write a check. Because I had a boatload of student loans that I only paid off like 5 years ago.
Right.
And I just want to be that successful just so I can like be like, start your life free and clear, like, and have some fun, but like, I think for me, I think the bar for success has changed in that I want to be happy with what I write, like genuinely happy. Cause I've taken trad deals and where I've been like, not enthusiastic about the project. And I'm just like, well, it seems like a good idea, or, I'll maybe get more readers this way, or for all the various things or things that you think you're going to get out of it. And I've just been miserable, like in the process. And I am too old and too tired to continue to do that. So I think the older I get and the more I do this, I mean, I think that I want to be really happy with what I'm writing and like really enjoying the adventure, because when I'm in it, like there are moments like I'll like excitedly run out of my office and be like, okay. And then this happened. And then and, like the dog is like, I don't care. And my daughter, she loves to write and she's a huge reader. And so then she'll be like, oh, mommy, you know what you should do next. And the babysitter did it. And I'm like, that's an excellent idea. Right. And so like, I want to feel that excitement level about what I'm writing. And I, at this point I've written enough books that I can be like, yeah, I should be excited because I can tell the difference. Hopefully the readers can't, but I can tell the difference between the things that I was so excited to write and the things that I was meh about writing. I can feel that. So I'd rather be excited and happy, because what's the point?
Yeah. It's so much easier to be motivated and go to work.
I mean, I'm never motivated for edits. Let's be real.
No.
Well, that's really funny. My kids, I write mystery, and my kids, they'll text me articles. They'll send me a link and be like, "Hey, 5 places where dead bodies have been found, Mom, that you might could use this." And I'm like,
yes. Isn't that the best though? Like Sierra Simone, she's a dear friend, and she'll always send me heist articles.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, did you see this heist thing? And I was like, no, but thank you.
Yeah.
And she's like, this feels like it should be in one of your books. And I'm like, yeah, sure. It's going in.
Going in. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. What do you wish you'd known about writing and craft when you started?
Oh my God. When I started, I wish I'd known about conflict, motivation, and goal. That would have saved me like at least 3 years.
Yes.
I mean, because I knew nothing. I was the pure definition of a pantser. And that's someone who doesn't plot or do, really know where their story is going. They just have an idea and they kind of start. And I really wish I'd understood the constructs of how a story works, because I implicitly understood because I'd read so much. And even now I'm a very instinctive writer. So even with my outline and whatever, I can feel it in my bones when I've gone wrong. I can feel it, which is great because I can usually stop and go, stop it. Let's course correct. I don't go back and try and start at the beginning. I just act as if I've made the changes. And
yes, I do too. That's what I do. Yeah.
And then make a note, in my giant editing notebook or whatever, so that I can keep moving. But I can feel it. And so I think in the early days, I would have really liked to tap into that feeling. Yeah. It would have I would have started my career earlier, I think, properly. I mean, yeah, because the number of times I stopped because I didn't know what to do or where to go. Right. And I learned about RWA, and I took a million and one workshops that were so just invaluable. And I met great mentors along the way. Misty Evans, she was the one who was super cute. Now write another one.
Write another one.
I will never forget the time she took to read a raw, unedited, god awful book. God bless her, man. Misty. Actually, I think I owe her a call this week. And she's been a great friend over the years, but she read that book and she's like, you have a thing. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. She's like, it's a thing. I'm like, I don't know what that is. But just her encouraging me and just really pushing. There's a lot in there, but yeah, I would have just really liked to just have had a clue.
I know. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to ask, are you more of a plotter now, or are you still kind of a combo? Yeah.
I've been a hard plotter. My first book that I sold, the second one that I wrote, Game Set Match, that was I went full plot. It was I had a 50-page outline.
Oh, wow.
And the book was mostly I was oh, it's here. But the problem was in those edits, because the way my brain, I'm an achiever. So my brain is but that's done. Now that we're done.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Why take all that time to write it down, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And so I've had to modify. So what I do is I usually do a bullet outline. I'll depending on what the book is or length of the book, I know about how many chapters that is. And so then, and I know about, about where love scenes are going to fall in. So you and then I'll plug and play. And and then I'm okay, so, and especially if I have a scene in my head and I know about where it goes, then I'll start plugging in the scenes after that. Because if you have if it's a huge action scene or a huge revelation scene, there's a reaction to that revelation. Yeah. What's that reaction? And then I'll fill in I'll just go on either side. Sometimes I don't know. And then I'll let it ruminate and just think about it and then come back and fill in. Nice. But that's really it for the outline. I don't do something crazy and I dictate to write. So I have.
I didn't know that. Great.
Yeah. So sometimes I forget character names. I forget, I'll forget locations, but it doesn't matter because I'm getting the words down.
Right. Right.
I can fix anything. So I really, it's a light plot, and then it allows me to go, that's not working. And so once my brain is no, no, then I can stop and fix whatever it is, make the note and keep going. And sometimes that's a whole new outline.
Yeah.
Which has happened several times. Not often, but enough that it's oh God. But I am definitely a plotter, but there's I've done it where I didn't let my brain get carried away. I didn't, and I read in the book, I remember reading it and my editor being it's fine. And I was oh, fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I replotted it and rewrote the whole thing and let the character do what he wanted.
Right.
And it was 100% better by miles.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, I think so since then I was don't do that again. Yes. So if I feel something coming on, I will act as if and carry on that way.
Yeah. Very good. I think that's good advice because I think a lot of newer authors have trouble getting past that first act.
Yes.
I know for me, my first act was killer, but then it was like the rest of it, I couldn't get past that first part until I got involved with RWA and got involved with.
It's so hard. Like, no, and the thing is, people tell you how hard it is. Like they tell you, but like it's usually people who don't know anything about writing. Like I always encourage like newbies. I'm like, make friends with other writers because they'll tell you the truth. And the thing is, it's different for everyone. I almost always know my beginning. Like I know how I wanted to start, or like the concept, the hook, the whatever, and then I know the end. Like I'm like, I know who because I'm always trying to kill people. I'm like, I know who the bad guy is. I know why he's the bad guy. I can see the bad guy so much clearer. I know why. I know what my twist is, and I can't wait till like I'm like, and then the twist is. But it's that like fun and games that I'm like, oh, the montage.
I do that. Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that because everybody goes, oh, the fun and games. That's the fun part. I'm like, it's not fun.
It's not fun for me.
It's not fun.
I'm like, so that's why, because that's usually along the way. Listen, I'll start with like a fun rom-com concept. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cute. As soon as we hit the first turning point, guess who wants to shoot people?
Somebody's
Me, this girl.
The guns are coming out, huh?
The guns are coming out.
Like, because I'm like, ooh, I need something to drive this forward. Because otherwise, to me, it's like just like a fluffy loop. And like, it's like, and I love a good banter. I love a good banter. But like, can't they have banter and adventure?
No, I agree.
Go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's always hard.
Yeah. Well, what about marketing? What do you wish you'd known about marketing?
Oh, God. Everything. I mean,
the most common answer. Yes.
I wish look, marketing is not my strong suit. It's never been. It isn't now. I wish in the early days I'd been more aware of places that could have helped me do marketing better, where I could have learned more. I wish in the early days, and I wish now somebody would have like, and people do have like marketing courses, but like I wish, like Sky Warren does this great ads for authors, and I think she just opened it again.
I was going to say it's open now. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's got this great class. And what I love about Sky's class is that she's very matter of fact. And she's like, this is what I do. This is information and this is data for you. And this is how you can collect your own data. Like, I wish someone else had like taken the other aspects of like, like takeovers in the early days. Cause takeovers, it's like now we all are like, oh no, not the takeover. But like someone had sat me down and been like, do these things or reach out to these people. Like if I'd had PR in the early days, ooh, child, my life would have just been so much easier. And I think for newbies, I think a lot of them are like, oh yeah, this PR company took me, but it's not even so much having the PR. It's like look around at what other people who have like a really great PR, pay attention to what they're doing. Really look at your books as an event, like really they're events, but also I'm old school. So I believe that the best way to market a book or yourself or your brand is to also write another book. And so I see a lot of newbies, they write one and then they spend like a year trying to promote it. And like, yes, you have to promote the book. But I'd usually like after a month, I give up on it's a new book. Not give up, but like I'd get back to writing for sure. Or be me and keep writing through the whole thing. But like, those are the kind of things that I wish I'd like really paid attention to, or had someone sit me down and be like, girl, listen. But then also like really, I think some authors do this really great thing where they create like these events around a release. And I'm not good at that. And I watch them with such like green envy, like, oh, they're so good at that. But like, I also just need to be better at taking notes and like incorporating those things in my process.
Right.
But then also I just hired great PR. So I'm with Valentine PR and I'm like, guys, thanks. Like Nina is killer and her team is amazing. And they made my life a lot easier. I'm like, where were you 10 years ago?
Right. Exactly.
A lot better.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you put out books faster, you don't have to have the big event as much.
That's what I was going to say.
Because I don't put out books faster. Every one of my releases feels like it's got to be a big splash. I have to,
Yeah.
So I think I've also always said if I put books out faster, I'd spend a lot less on pretty much everything. Because,
No, yeah. I mean, yes, on some things, but more on others. Like, I mean, the thing is, it's what's interesting to me is like, I look over the course of my career, and because I'm an achiever type, I'm very much Tiana. Like, I'm always like, dig a little deeper. Like, I'm like, oh, I'll just write more.
Yeah.
That's how you increase this. And I'm like, work smarter, not harder, which is one of like the things that I still have to like tell myself. Diversify, work smarter, not harder. Like, really, for newbies, I think, like, dismissive is the wrong word. I'm a writer. I should think of the right one, but dismissive is the wrong word. But just for me, I know that when people would be talking about things, I'm also learners in my top 5. So I'd be like super interested in learning, but then I would be like, yeah. Oh, this is great. And then I would set it aside because I'd be like, I'm not ready for this yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas I think I needed more activator inside my brain because my activator is way in the end.
I'm number 1 activator. So you can.
Okay.
I start a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, I could do this. And just a little bit of it. Like, I think I remember when I heard people were doing like self-published translations, my brain was like, oh yeah. So I was like, my learner was like, hey, what's this about? So I got a bunch of information, but then I didn't activate and do anything about it. I was like, oh, it's too expensive, or I can't do that right now. Or like my achiever was like, we're doing this. This book is due. We're going to write 10 books this year. And that my brain was saying that, which is great. But maybe my brain needed to say, let's do 8 books this year and learn about these translations and like incorporate them. Yeah. So I think that for someone like me, not necessarily dismissive because I want to learn all the things, but also like find a way to see if you can do what people are doing that works for you. Because it'll seem like when audio like was a thing and I was like, I want to be available everywhere in audio. I did when I finally got into audio, because it took me a minute because I was like, oh, audio, I want to do that. But to like kickstart me into doing it, I was like, and so I had to be smart about which ones I did because they're so expensive.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I would say like, for marketing, kind of like definitely pay attention, write down things that like make sense to you, and then find a way, just like a 3-bullet plan. Like, how would you do it? Because I think when you can like really engage with that, your brain can be like, oh, it is possible. You don't have to necessarily wait. And I wish I'd paid more attention to that in the early days.
Right. And you can scale. Like if you are newer and or don't have a ton of money or a ton of time or whatever, you can scale what's working for other people to fit what you do. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that and then just get overwhelmed and say, well, I can't do it. You know?
Exactly. The overwhelm is real. Like, number 1 achiever. I'm currently in my achiever basements. And so the overwhelm is real. Like you just look at everything and you're just like, I want to nap.
One thing I've learned is like I wanted to do large print because mystery readers like large print. And I was like, putting my whole catalog in large print was overwhelming. And all of a sudden I thought, I could just do one series. I'll just pick my best-selling series and I'll do that one and we'll see how it goes, And so it's like learning to kind of maybe scale back a little bit.
Because it's tempting to do it all.
Oh yeah.
Do everything.
You want to do it all. Yeah.
It's so tempting. And then you're like, I mean,
wait, where did I start here?
Yeah, exactly.
I do this all the time. I wish current me could go to past me and be like, stop it.
Just stop. Yeah. What assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
I thought I'd be a millionaire off of a book, girl. So when I started, it was, I started writing like what? Yeah, it was like right before September 11th was when I started writing that first book. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to write this book and make millions of dollars. Listen, I was like, yes, it's going to be a best. Like, I mean, it's just, part of that is pie in the sky dreamer, but I really thought that like, and that happens for some people, but I didn't have the more realistic view of when I got my first trad check. And I looked at it and it was $57. Listen,
wait a minute. This is not correct.
I was like,
we're missing some zeros.
Y'all, where are my zeros?
Yeah. I'd like to buy a 0 or 10, 5.
The 5 and 6 more. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were like, I just didn't understand. I didn't know or understand anything about like really how to grow a career, you know, kind of properly. Like, yes, part of that was the dream. Like, oh, you want to hit big on your first thing, which some people do, like, right. So that happens. But like, I didn't really have a good enough understanding of the market or this industry. I mean, I sold my first book, so I was like, yes, great. But I sold to a smaller publisher and I was like, oh, little money. I didn't understand enough about covers. And so like, there are things that I was like, oh, but it's going to be easy. And it certainly was not. I thought I'd crank out that first book in like a year, 8 years later. I mean, I was still fiddling with it. Right. And so, so there's a lot there, but I think that, you know, in terms of like what the assumptions that I made, I thought that like, I don't know why I thought writers would make a lot of money because writers are artists. I don't know why I thought that. But that's what I really thought. And then I thought it would be easier to earn that money. It's not.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. There are a lot easier ways to make money than writing a book. So if that's why you're getting into this, which, you know, I did too. I mean, I wanted to make money and, but there
anyone
are
who says they
easier
don't
ways.
want to make money is lying.
Yeah, they're lying.
I want to write awesome stories and like fun, just like really just like juicy goodness. Also, I want to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever made a mistake that turned out to be a good thing?
Oh my God. All the time. Well, I mean, I think the mistake is a matter of your perspective, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because usually it ends up in a lesson learned. And you know, and you really kind of like go through that. I mean, sometimes I've made like not ideal narrator choices for books, or in the early days, one of my first audiobooks, Sexy and Stilettos, like I really wanted to hire this particular narrator, and she'd been so great on other people's stuff. Like I listened to all the samples and I really, really wanted her. And then like when she got to mine, it's like when you're a director of a movie and you're trying to give someone a note, but like, and you've heard actors like tell these stories of like, they turned up to an audition and they put on 50 pounds or something like that. Cause they're like, well, I thought that the character should be played like this. And the director's like, no. And so they were booted or whatever. And so like, it was that kind of situation. I was like trying to give her director notes and I was like, but she's so good. Why can't she be good at this one? And I was like, and so I had to eventually like release her and be like, it's not going to work. And it turned out great because I got Tracy Odom on that, on Sexy and Stilettos. And that audiobook's done great over the last, 10 years almost now. Brief. No. So, I mean, so that's done great in the long run. So I'm glad. But, you know, the thing is the mistakes, it's like, even if someone does great, like for narrators, someone can sound great for someone else, but you don't know the work that person had to go through to get that person to be great. I've hired cover artists that other people like love and they, you know, do great work for other people, but then I turn up and it's like, not like the fabulous experience I thought it was going to be. I mean, so like we all make these kind of little flubs and mistakes. The key, and that comes from like my project management background, is to recognize it early, which is super key, and pivot quickly. And then the mistakes will just be learning experiences and they won't even feel like mistakes.
That's good.
The hard part is a lot of people, you know, it's hard because in an industry primarily for women by women, I think that we're taught that it's not a business in a way, and that it's about friendships and relationships, which it is, but it's also a business. And so we need to be able to like extract ourselves from situations kindly, but still extract ourselves. We aren't just going to, we can't keep doing things where we're like, I don't really like this cover designer, but I'm going to keep using them because I'm afraid.
So
and I hear that a lot. People are like, I don't really like this editor, but I'm just going to keep letting her edit my things because I don't want to hurt her feelings. And I'm like, that is money.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you're playing with you're playing with your career at that point.
Yes. Because we're trying to be nice. I was like, you can do it with kindness and be like, listen, I really appreciate our friendship. It's not working out for us on this level. And if someone wants to hold that against you, they weren't actually your friend. And I think that's a hard thing to kind of digest.
Right.
Yeah. I think working with freelancers is very stressful. It's like, it's not something that, I don't know if you're ever trained for that. And like a lot of this we come to as writers and creatives, and then we're like, oh, now we have to almost like manage. At least you have your project management background. So that would be helpful, I would think.
It comes in handy. Yeah, it comes in handy. I mean, I understand how to manage teams and how to manage people, usually what their core motivations are, which helps a lot. But freelancers are a whole different kettle of fish, because most people, I was like, well, you have to work with me. You work here.
Yeah, exactly.
You can quit, but I'm totally not quitting. So we're gonna have to learn to work together. But freelancers are different, because which makes me insane because I don't control them.
Right.
I'm like, it's like, the thing is, things happen. Like we all have kids. Some of us are still working our regular day jobs. Some people are still, everyone's got their own different situations. But like the key is, one of the hard things, I think, especially for newbies, is professionalism. And like, you should be professional, and you should be working with people who treat you professionally back.
Right.
And if you form a friendship on top of that, excellent.
That's great. Yeah.
Be friendly, be friends, but this is a business.
Yeah.
My piece of advice.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Really smart.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. But what about the opposite? Have you ever had what you thought was like this wonderful, brilliant idea, and then it turned out to be not so great?
Do you want it by book, by series, by cover,
alphabetical?
You gotta be more specific. No.
Just whatever came to mind first.
Oh my God. I mean, okay, listen. Everyone at least once in their career gets on that, like, oh, this is the hot trend. Listen, I will say, like, understand, like, whatever hot trend it is. I don't personally do this, because once I settled in and was like, oh, I should just be doing my own thing. Everyone's going to have that thing where they're like, I see this everywhere, I should do it. If you're going to do that, you need to really understand what the cornerstones are of whatever hot trope it is, whatever hot genre it is. You must understand those cornerstones. I will give you an example. Y'all remember when Step Brother was hot?
Yep.
That was the thing. Step brother everywhere. And I was like, and in my brain was like, but I was like twitching all the time. I was like, what is this? And then I was like, no, but it's super hot. And so in my head, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do Step Brother, but I'm going to make a twist. Listen, to this day, I look at this particular book. Now the book still turned out great, but it didn't hit any of the cornerstones. And I was confused at the time because I didn't understand. And so the book was Come Home Again, as everyone's like, ooh, let's go do this. Listen, if you love Step Brother, this isn't that.
Yeah.
I messed it up bad. Listen, so instead of Step Brother, I know we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to keep it brief, but like, instead of Step Brother, I was like, okay, so I'm going to make him her foster brother.
Yeah.
And then instead of that like hot angsty moment in time where it's like they do live under the same roof. Oh, no. I had him be like, for reasons, had to like I got to leave the family to protect them. So he left, and they don't see each other again for like 10 years when she has to help him become CEO of a company or whatever. And I was like, I completely neutered my stepbrother. I was like, no, it's great. Stepbrother, he's her foster brother. So hot. No, not the same.
But the book still did well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it did thought, I think actually at the time it did great. Like I was like, oh, this is amazing. But over the course of time, I look back at that particular book and I'm like, oh, I didn't really understand.
I hate it when my hero's neutered. I just hate it.
And the thing is, like, normally when I'm in my lane and I'm doing what I should be doing, I can feel it. And I know when I've missed the mark. I can tell.
Right.
And so, and I'm like, my editor, Angie Ramey, she's amazing. And we've done like 30 books together now. And she's always like, she's always like, what happened here? And so I can feel it, but I was trying to do something that wasn't in my lane that I was like, oh, it's on trend. I'm going to do it too. No, I was not on trend.
And you weren't completely comfortable.
Yeah, I wasn't completely comfortable. I wasn't like, yes, it's hot. It's like me right now trying to write BDSM like that. No, that's not I should not be doing that.
Right.
I should be like, you want BDSM done well? Go read Sarah Simone. Like not just like, oh, but let me jump in on that. No, you need to understand what you do well. And that's not to say you can't learn. If you're super interested in something, you can definitely learn, but understand the cornerstones and like really how it's working.
Reader expectations, genre expectations, subgenre expectations. Those
and it's like it's like I tell my daughter, you can break a rule, but only when you understand the rule, like really know it well, and then you can break it, and like make a twist on it. But if you don't understand it well, you just missed.
You're just going to miss the mark. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we have some specific questions for you, and you do an Instagram Live weekly.
Yes.
That's great. And can you tell us like why you decided to start doing that? And is there anything you wish you'd known about doing things like that on a regular basis? Besides not using Instagram. I saw your thing yesterday.
Yes. Oh my God. No, Instagram just logged me out yesterday. It was wild. I was like, I was having my chat and then like, it just went off and I was like, because I was saying something important too. I was like,
yes, you were on a roll. Yeah.
I was on a roll and I was like, no. Okay. So, so for me, I have been doing Talk to Me, like a weekly sort of thing, trying to like, just touch point my readers. And I think I'd struggled for a while because social media was not like, I'm an old lady, I don't look old, but I'm about to be 44. And most of social media like started after I was a grown ass adult. And so as a grown adult, I'm like, a lot of this doesn't apply. How do I do this? Yeah. I don't understand. And it took me a long time to really realize, and people were like, oh, talk to your readers. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Explain to me. Like I'm 5, please. And so I was really trying to find a way to connect. And then I realized that I did well on video and people really responded to my video presence because people were like, it feels like you're in our living room just talking to us. And I was like, I can do this.
Yes.
And so I tried it in my Facebook group and not as successful. And I was like, and so I started really doing it on Instagram. And I was like, if I can do one thing. And so what's easier for me was to really film them ahead of time. And they were fine. But then what really started to kick like real engagement was when I moved them to live, because I remember I had done one video and it took forever to load. Like it took all day to load the video. I think it loaded at like 11 p.m. because I talked for like 30 minutes or something like that. And it was just too big. And Instagram was like, it's too big. And so I went live and that really kind of like kicked off this engagement with the audience. And I was like, oh,
yes.
Oh, this, this is really what people meant. And so, and mostly, I talk about everything. Sometimes it's Henry Cavill's thighs. Because I feel like that is worthy of conversation. Sometimes
and it's not talked about enough.
Right. And sometimes it's about Michael B. Jordan and how he needs to be my Alexa. I was trying to turn Michael B. Jordan into Alexa for a solid week. And my husband was like, I will throw away that Alexa. But usually, especially since last summer, it's really about, kind of very topical in terms of like, because last summer, what I said, I was like, we have to change as a people, as an industry. And so a lot of what I cover is social justice stuff, but like not really from like, look, I would never have have ever deemed myself an activist or, someone really in the trenches. There are people who do a lot of the activism work so much better than I do. But what I could do was have some, like, one of the things people are always like, they're like, wow, you're direct. And I'm like, I could have some straight talk with people. I was like, people can take it or leave it. It's invited some commentary sometimes, but as it were. And I, sometimes I keep it light. But usually it's like, hey, these things have been talking about changing and doing and, moving past. We're still doing these things. And, having real conversations about, sometimes the difficulties that I myself personally, but like women of color have faced in the industry, like in our romance industry. So I talk about it. And it's weird because the internet keeps providing topics. It's so bizarre. You would
I don't know if it's the internet or
eventually.
just people. Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it's like things that happen in Romancelandia that's like, guys, for real.
Yeah. I thought we were at least on the road to fixing this.
Right.
And we've gone back to the beginning. Yeah.
Gone back to the beginning. I mean, and sometimes it's like plagiarism scandals or bullying or whatever. So like it just became like a Thursday talk show.
Yeah. And so I wanted to talk to you about this, but we talked about it before we got on, because especially with social justice and racism and how racism kind of rears its ugly head in the author community and stuff. I truly believe that the onus to doing the work and figuring that out is on me as a white woman. But I should not have to go to my Black friends and say, explain this to me, but you kind of set yourself up for that. So I'd like you to kind of talk. You said something yesterday that I just love so much about how your non-melanin sisters should shield.
Yes.
Our Black and brown sisters who are taking the arrows in some of these things. Can you just kind of explain like what you mean by that?
Oh, sure.
How we can do better. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, the onus, like, brown people didn't start racism. We were minding our happy brown business. And so the onus is on our non-melanated peeps to fix it. But one of the things that happens, I think, especially in the area of like romance and authorship, et cetera, but everywhere really, is that when Black and brown people speak up, we are gaslighted. I mean, gaslit, whatever the past tense of that is. But like, you're making it up. You're making too much of it. You're lying. That's not what happened. Or people attack us and say, well, you're attacking me. You're so aggressive. You're bullying me. Oh, gosh, Lord. Non-melanated women love the bullying one. P.S. Melanated peeps love that one too, because we've all, listen, as a society, we've all been indoctrinated. We all live in a white supremacist society. We really do. And so if you have people in your life who are Black and brown and you love those people and you care about those people, it is your job. It is your new mission statement to protect them with your bodies and your privilege. Because when they speak up, as they have been for 400 years, when they speak up, people tell them that they're lying or that they're being aggressive. And sometimes their lives are in danger for speaking the truth. And this has happened a lot. Like when someone who's Black or brown says, hey, this thing that's not okay. Like that's not, no. They immediately get attacked because non-melanated folks love to turn up and be like, you're a bully because I said something was wrong. How is that bullying? And what happens is like you start seeing the us them statements, and this is from people who consider themselves like really woke. And I'm like, did you just us and them? This stuff? Like what just happened here? And so it's really about, I mean, and I've had a million situations where it's like I'm very direct, and so people will be like, well, I don't like how you said that and the messaging, and I'm like, well, here's the thing, I'm direct, I'm not yelling, I'm just merely being like, what you just said doesn't work, and here's why. But me, just the act of me verbalizing that, I'm uppity. I think I'm better than people. I'm attacking someone.
You're aggressive.
I'm aggressive. Oh, they
Mad.
loved it
Yeah.
about Black
Oh,
women,
yeah, they
especially.
loved it. Yeah.
And so, but, and then like, I'll have my white friends who are right there who are like, oh no, stop it. Let's just, but it's like, no, you needed to physically plant your body in front of mine and be like, no, here's why you're wrong.
Right.
P.S. I shouldn't have been the one to be like, hey, that thing isn't right.
Right.
My non-melanated sister who also saw that thing not being right and was like, oh, but is it like, in particular, the case that we were talking about yesterday, like there's some people who were like, oh, it just feels like a dog pile. And I'm like, no, wrong answer. Because the thing is, when public figures put themselves out there and they say problematic stuff, they don't have friends who are like, hey girl, your whole behind is flapping in the wind, or they're not listening. Right. And so you need, like, someone has to say it. The problem is when Black and brown women say it, they catch flack. And so, and like what will happen a lot of times is then people are like, oh, so-and-so. And then the messages and the hate and our mental health is at risk.
Yes.
Because we're like, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And Black women, especially, like, we are at the bottom of the totem pole. And so every time a Black woman speaks, I mean, look, the icon of all icons, Miss Shonda Rhimes, like, she ran ABC for years. Okay. Like, she just owned that network. Every Thursday night you turned up and it was Shonda Rhimes, like 3 hours. And you're like, I'm here, I'm locked in. Where's my popcorn and my massive bowl of wine? But, and everyone was enamored with her. Hell, they still are. Thank you, Bridgerton. She's amazing. She's so brilliant. She went to Dartmouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's amazingly brilliant. And an article, I will never forget this article, that was meant to be touting her and meant to be like singing her praises, was like, this is why Shonda Rhimes is running the world. And then they called her an angry Black woman in the article. But they said it like it was trying to be a joke. Yeah. Like tongue in cheek. And I was like, we cannot just cause harm willy-nilly and then be confused when people are like, you caused harm. People need to learn the art of an apology, because what happens when people cause harm is that they're like, I'm sorry if you felt this way. I'm sorry, but why are we adding but?
I'm sorry you took it the wrong way.
Yeah. I am sorry. Close your mouth. I did not intend to hurt you, but I understand that my actions caused pain. Yeah. I will work on how to fix this for you.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Stop talking.
Yep. That's it.
And because remember, the other person is not obligated to accept your apology. They're not. This is something I have to explain to my daughter all the time. And I loved it once. I mean, she had a really horrible bullying situation at her old school. And, one day this kid who had physically assaulted her, like the teachers at school were like, oh, just say sorry. And he did. And she was like, I don't accept. And I have never been more proud.
No.
As a parent.
That's awesome.
She's like, no. And I was like, heck yeah. It's my baby. Because I was like, she doesn't have to accept. And like, and everyone's like, oh, just, this idea, just be nice. No, as I need to raise a woman who can stand on her own and go, no, actually, that's not okay. Right. I'm not just going to accept the scraps that you're dishing out.
Right. Yeah. And I think two things for me this year that have become very clear is, one, I did not understand the mental health issue of constant daily aggression.
Oh yeah.
Microaggressions, face aggression. I mean, I did not understand that.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, I'm a peacemaker. So I think I know in the past, I've tried to see both sides, and so there are no sides. You cannot do that anymore. If we're going to protect the Black and brown people, the marginalized people in our lives, we can't do that anymore.
It's not, it hasn't been acceptable, and it's certainly not acceptable now. No. I mean, but also I think as women, especially, we're always all taught the wrong message. Oh, just be nice. Just be quiet. Just don't make a wave. But that assimilationist attitude only keeps us going in the way that we're going. But like, and especially our daughters, like our daughters and our granddaughters, like, what are we teaching them? If we're teaching them that, like, like we had a whole reckoning with Me Too. It's like, because we've all been taught, like, don't make a wave. And it's like, no, but that's it's my body, my space. And especially like as a Black woman, do you know the number of times, even now, people are like, oh my God, I love your hair, while they're reaching out to me to touch it, touch it. And I'm like I'm from Ghana. I know exactly my roots, where I come from. I can take you to my grandparents' village. I can do that whole thing. But for someone who's Black American and has 400 years of oppression and this implicit ownership, the idea that you thought it was okay for you to touch their body without permission, what? I'm flabbergasted. But people are like, oh, and then people try and be like, oh, but I touch everyone's hair. No,
you don't. Probably not.
No, probably not.
We've all been in this room, and no, but I'm the only one who's.
Yes, I'm the only one. And the thing is, if I did it, then I'm being aggressive. Because imagine if Black people run around trying to like having implicit ownership over white people's hair. Imagine. Right. Oh God, there'd be bodies in the streets. So it's just it's these things that like people say and do. I will never forget. I will tell this story because, and I'll probably talk about it on Talk to Me Thursday, but I will never forget. There was, a retreat, an author retreat. And I was so excited to meet this one author. So I was a fan. I thought she was great and funny, and I loved her social media, and it was just great. And I had been talking about, difficulties in publishing for authors of color and like my particular difficulties. And she was like, you know what? I think you would earn more money if you just made all your characters white. She said that to my face, like with her whole chest.
Yeah.
She said it.
I love that phrase, with her whole chest. Yeah.
Her whole chest out and proud. And I was like, and I have never forgotten it, because whenever I have to sit there and make a decision about the heroine in my book, if she's going to be brown or if she's going to be non-melanated, because those are things that only authors of color have to think about and really contend with. As I sit there, I remember her words, and they sit with me to this day. And this was years ago. And they sit with me as I'm like, that is who I'm fighting against on a daily basis. On a daily basis. People who refuse to read books with brown people in them. People still continue to say this. Like, there are people say this all the time out loud and think it's okay that they won't read books with heroines of color. Yeah. They say it all the time. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
So those are the things that we talk about on Talk to Me Thursday. And those are the things like I really try to address. And because the thing is, most people aren't bad people. No. Most people aren't, there are some real bad people out there, but most people I think are trying to be better humans, but until, and like I said, Sarah Simone is a good friend of mine, but it's really funny. She talks about once you see, you cannot unsee.
Yeah.
But if you cover your eyeballs, put an eye mask on, and wear a hat down low, and are like, everything is fine, you're never going to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I did and it's true. On one hand, proximity changes things, but then on the other hand, proximity doesn't change things, because just because I have Black friends doesn't mean I'm particularly non-racist, and because it's such an onion, and you just every time there's an issue, or every day really, I see places in my heart, because growing up in a small town in Texas, I still remember restaurants where Black people sat in another room in the back. I remember those things. So it's just, it is ingrained. It is just something that we've all, as a society, has grown up with.
It's in the fabric of everyday life.
Right.
And for being Black in this country, my parents moved back to Ghana when I was in college. I think my father had always had a difficulty here. Listen, he had a great job and great opportunities, and, he does well and travels and all that stuff. But he always had, my father, a lecturer, and, he's done work for the UN. It's he's been arrested before, driving while Black, on his way to give a talk at Brandeis University. I'll never forget it. Yeah. And so I'm And so they left. They went back to Ghana. And they're living a great life. And they're like, oh, just like you can just breathe.
Yes,
and
they can take a deep breath. Yeah.
You know, and every day, like you know, the pandemic has been interesting because obviously it's been horrid for all of us, you know, but like there's a certain breath of like when my husband comes home, like he's fine, like when he comes, like he's classified essential because he works for the government sometimes. But when he walks in the house, I can breathe because he's home and he's safe. But then also it's like, oh, if it's a weekend and we don't have to encounter anyone with a microaggression, I don't have to encounter anyone who's going to say something. I mean, as long as I don't go on the internet, right? But we can like, you can live a non-microaggression life.
Yes.
But now that we're opening up outside again, it's like, oh, part of the daily life again. Oh,
the anxiety is ratcheting up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also do a book club on your Thursday Talks. So tell us about that and how you pick the books.
So the Brown Nipple Challenge, I started it last year. It was sort of my response, obviously, to the uprisings of last summer. I wanted to do something that was, you know, sustainable for me. I mean, like, you know, every time like I would encounter someone racist or saying something, I would just take my happy behind to donate to the ACLU and just be like NAACP and, you know, and grit my teeth. But I was like, no, I want to do more. I mean, and, you know, I have a young daughter, and yes, the protests that were happening in San Diego were peaceful for the most part, but like, I was like, there's an element of safety there. And so I wanted to really do something, but that more than just protesting, like the actual actionable change. And because of that one author who said that thing to me, I was like, there are people out there who really are like, no, I won't read books. People, they say it with their whole chest. Yeah, I know. I don't like reading books with like people with heroines of color. People have been like, I like to center myself in the story. And then they turn around and like, oh my God, I loved that Shifter book. And I'm like, wait, so are you a werewolf?
Yeah. I mean,
it's just a mental
I'm like, you can read
disconnect.
Shifter books, you can read alien books. Are you a serial killer? You can read books about serial killers, but God forbid
you read a book
that woman have a couple of drops of melanin and you are like, I can't possibly identify. And so, but there are people who like obviously wanted to look like they were, you know, extra woke, you know, everyone's posting in black squares and doing all the stuff, but like, it was very performative. And I was like, no, I'm going to challenge you. If you have people in your life that look like me and you want to make actual change, let's actually change the lives of authors of color. Because at the end of the day, you just being like, oh my God, it's on my Goodreads shelf is BS. What you need to do, instead of just putting it on your diversity shelf and being like, look, aren't I woke? We need to buy these books, actually purchase them. You know, if you can buy a Starbucks, you can get a book. We need to purchase these books. And then the next step is to actually read them, consume them, and discuss them, because that's the number one way that you build these like kind of rabid fan bases, and to really have these conversations. And I was like, for people who've never read book, like usually when people in the romance industry are like, oh yeah, I've heard of Alyssa Cole, Kennedy Ryan, you know, Dylan Allen. They list like Brittany Cherry. They list like 4 or 5 Black authors. Yes, I love them. And I'm like, okay, but we have like hundreds that are out here doing amazing, great things, but they won't try anything else because they're like, no, I've heard of these people. And I'm like,
because they know they're safe.
Yes, they're safe.
Yeah.
Although you're going to read a Kennedy Ryan book and you're going to get some.
No, you're not going to be safe.
Cry.
Believe me, I was walking, listening to Long Shot, and I had to come home and lay down. Like I was just like that. My world was wrecked.
Kennedy's going to wreck you.
It was great, but it was.
And she's amazing and a beautiful lyrical writer. But there are other amazing, beautiful lyrical writers that people are like, oh, but I tell my Goodreads, I tell my TBR, no, we're going to read these books.
Good.
And so I started it, and then I was like, and then we're also going to do the thing where we're going to talk to the author, because one of the things, the few marketing things I have noted is like, when you hear someone talk and you actually see them and you engage with them and you feel like you know them, then you're like, oh, but they're just like me. And so you're more likely to be like, oh, this person is also safe, quote unquote. And you're more likely to see them as a person. And
they're
so
a real person
as a
instead of
real
like
person,
a name on a shelf or something.
Exactly. And then you're more likely to engage with their work. And so, and plus no one wants to turn up a book club not having read the book.
It's embarrassing.
God, it's awful. That feeling in your pit of your stomach. No. And so, and so I started the Brown Nipple Challenge. And, in the early days, I think a lot of authors were like, yes. But I was like, this is how to do it. And I think that, again, there was some performative, like, I want to do this. I want to help. But people were like, oh, it's just, because I was like, you got to talk about the books and talk to the author. That is the key. You can't just be like, go buy this book, because that's not the challenge. The challenge is to pick up the book, read the book, and engage with your audience about the book. That is the step. Because if you don't do that, then people can because it's like, oh, people are like, oh, I don't have to do the work. Okay, great. I can just put it on my TBR and be like, look at me, how great I am. And I'm trying with the challenge, we're trying to stop that performative action. So
changes.
So it's been great. The authors that I've picked, some are trad, some are not trad. It's been really interesting, like new authors to me. I'm just like, sometimes I'll have a friend who's like, you got to read this book. And then I'm like, okay, what's this? What am I going into? And so this month's author is Pintip Dunn. So it's a YA. And she is Asian. And I really wanted to support the AAPI community. And so I was like, we haven't had an Asian author. And then I was like, and so I'm looking for a South Asian author for next time. So like, I'm all the brown nipples. Cause listen, everyone has nipples, everybody, just the color is going to be different. And and it was really a response to I've loved romance for so long, but in the early days, especially like everyone's blonde, brunette, redheaded. And it sent the message home that girls who looked like me were not beautiful, were not deserving of love. And it's a subtle message, but that message sticks, because even as a grown adult, I still have to shake off that feeling sometimes.
Well, we wanted to talk to you about covers too, because that is something that's very, it's very obvious. If you just go to the library or the bookstore and start looking at covers, there are not a lot of covers with Black, brown people, different ethnicities. So how have you handled that? And
this is a great story.
So, how I handle is that I fix the problem. That's 100% correct. So for anyone listening who isn't, in the romance or, writer world, looking through stock photos, trying to find people that look like your characters, is the seventh circle of hell.
The worst thing in the absolute world.
The worst.
The
worst. And then trying to find people who haven't been overused. On every single cover, or in every marketing piece. And then trying to find, it's awful already. But then you add that I've written 97 books and over half of them feature women of color. Trying to find women of color in stock photos. What? And even if you are like, hey, I can be fancy and pay for a premium photo, most photographers don't even have women of color available in their stock
on
pile.
Call or whatever. Oh wow.
It's like, in romance, there's a certain set of photographers everyone kind of goes around to using. It's if you're trying to find something that hasn't really been used yet, you're going to be searching a long time. And that's the difficulty that I've had. And so for years, I used to put women of color on the covers. And this is a publishing thing. Publishing for decades be like, Black people don't sell books. And so they didn't want to put Black people inside the books. They didn't want to put Black people on the covers of books. They don't want to pay Black people money to write the books. And this is a publishing thing that has happened for years. And so when I started and I was like, well, my mission statement was to feature as many women of color as I could, because I was speaking to 13-year-old me. And so I've written that half and half line, more veering towards brown nipples than anything, but for most of my career. And in the early days, I used to do it all the time, but I recognized that the moment I stopped doing that, and put, pretty white boys on covers or objects on covers, those books sold better, which was horrifyingly just awful. But after last summer, and I'll give credit where it's due, my publicist, Nina Grinstead, said to me, she was like, we need to put Brown Girl back on these covers. And I was like, what are you saying? And I was like, great. I was like, no, this is, I was like, oh, okay. It's just nerve wracking because mostly I was like, have you been through stock photos lately? No? And she's like, no, we can hire a model, as we're looking at photographers that people use. And we're like, oh, no, nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Oh, okay. Or, it's a $10,000 photo. And I'm like, well, she's gorgeous. That's that. Oof. And so, and I've modeled before for a good photographer friend of mine, Wander Aguiar, for other people's covers. And so I was like, I can't find a model. I don't know what to do. And Nina was like, well, you just have to be on the cover. And she just said it matter of factly. And I was like, my own cover? Oh no. And in the end of the day, it turned out to be the best thing that I've ever done. It was terrifying because it's not just about the book then. It's about your face on the cover. Yes. And I was terrified of commentary. The interwebs are not a kind place, especially for brown women. Yeah. And so I was very scared, but I did it. And Nina was right. She's going to hear this later and be like, I know. Yeah, I told you. Nina was right. And it turned out great. Like those books are like probably my best sellers right now.
That's great.
And then I just did, I'm releasing a Kobo original with, in Kobo Books, in May. And when they asked me to write for them, they were like, we want to put a woman of color on the cover. And they were like, well, you've already done your own covers. Can you do it again? So I did, because they were like, we've looked through stock photos, and I'm like, I'm sure you have. What did you find? They're like, nothing. I'm like,
I can tell by the dark circles under your eyes that you've been looking.
That you've been looking through stock. They're like, oh God, there's nothing. I'm like, I know. Welcome.
Yeah.
So,
that's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Real quick before we go to the last question, I want to go back to the brown nipple thing because you're doing something with Andy Arndt.
Yes.
For audio, but can you tell us about that? And are you taking donations for that? I mean, is there?
We are.
So I want to know about that too. So our listeners can donate if they want to and get involved.
Okay. So when I started the Brown Nipple Challenge, Lyric Audiobooks was like just so great. Like they immediately reached out and were like, this is amazing. How do we support you? We've been trying to support narrators of color too. And I, like at the time I was like, I don't know, share. Like that's great. Because I think, especially in the early days, I didn't know it would become a thing, right? Like I was just in the corner trying to do something good for a few authors. I didn't think it would become like this thing. And, at first, like, they were like, okay, great. Yeah, we'll totally share it. We'll amplify, push it. And then Andy came back and she was like, no, what more can I do? And I was like, I don't know. And so we had some conversations and she was like, listen, what if we were able to help some of these authors? Cause she's like, the number one thing Andy thinks about is there an audiobook for this? And so many times, you if any author who's ever tried to do their own audiobook knows how expensive it is. The cost is, and you will earn it back 100%. You will earn that money back, but it will take you some time. Some people get lucky and can earn it back right away, but it's an investment in a long-term career and it's not cheap. And Andy was like, what if we could get funding to help some people get audiobooks made? And I was like, that would be amazing. And she's like, hold on, I have a call with some people who might be able to help. Look, 10 minutes later, Andy we had a $30,000 grant. And I was like, how did what happened just now? And so we have an angel investor who's been amazing. And they gave us money, and we were like, well, okay, we'll start with 6 books. And then a funny thing happened when we announced it, and we worked with Andy and her team. They're really running most of the back end behind it on how to get people to submit and what our whole process is and the judging. But an amazing thing happened when we announced. The author community like came out strong, and we're literally trying to throw money at the screens. They were like, where do we give money? And I was like, what do you mean? We have a grant. It was very confusing for us. But then I started getting the emails. People were like, I want to give you money. And I was like, so you can buy some books. I don't. And they were like, no, for audio and color. And I was like, we have money. Okay, hold my beer. And so I called Andy, and Andy's like, I shall make a basket. And so we have a GoFundMe. I don't know how we give the link, but yes, if you follow me on Instagram, on my profile, the link is in there. And you can donate. And right now we're just shy of $8,000 that have been donated by the romance writer community and other communities of fiction writers and audio narrators. And I remember going in and I saw some narrators in there too. And I was like, guys, this is amazing. So it's been, the outpouring of support has been incredible. And I'm so honored to have partnered with you.
That's fantastic. We'll put the link, we'll get the link from you and put it in our show notes so people can
excellent. Perfect. I was like, how do we do this?
Just for anybody who doesn't know, Andy Arndt is arguably one of the top narrators in romance.
She wins Audis
but she's the cream of the crop, and so
she's amazing. And I've known her for years now, and she's always been so incredibly supportive. And and not just supportive like in this kind of like performative way, but like in really putting her money where her mouth is. And she's like, how do we really do this to impact lives? And so it's been, I'm so honored to partner with her, and it's going to be great. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to see who the authors selected are. I'm ready. And so those authors will then be featured in the Brown Nipple Challenge as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's so good, because it's the reading challenge is something that's it's practical. It's like, it will change things. It will change the way people think.
It will. And it also makes just like actionable change for an author, because even if an author is trad and all of a sudden their publishers, like, you've had several hundred downloads. What is happening? Like, it just gives them clout, because then they maybe get another contract, It's really about putting money into the pockets of Brown authors because we have been denied access, because without the early access, you can't run Facebook ads, you can't run Amazon ads, you can't you need money to do all of those things. And so to actually put money in the pockets of Brown women, that's awesome. That's what we're out to do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, as we wrap up, last question.
Yes.
What's the best thing you think you've done to set yourself up for success?
Ooh, so many things. But I honestly think understanding who I am as a writer, understanding brass tacks, really understanding who I am, what I want to write, what brings me joy, what is actually important to me. Because then it stops me from going down these side rabbit holes, being like, I'm going to write a stepbrother romance. So that I can really engage with I know what, if you tell me a hero's from London and he's wearing a pea coat, I'm like, yes, sign me up. I'm here for it. So if you're telling me that then there's espionage and there's spying and there's a hidden prince, sign me up. I'm here, but if you're and then it's a small town romance, I don't write small town romance. I enjoy reading them sometimes, but that doesn't get me going. And I'm like, did someone die in the small town?
Yeah.
Do we need the FBI? I need to, And so that really understanding who I am as a writer and what I really actually enjoy writing makes the process so much easier. But also when you're engaged and you're excited, you can really go stratosphere with it, because everything you do is always exciting and always fun. And it's not hard to get up in the morning to hit your word count.
Yeah. That's great.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, we have loved having you here. It's just been
Thank you
great.
So much.
Can you tell people where they can find you
Yes,
online?
you can find me primarily on Instagram at Not a Malone Writer. You can also find me on Facebook Nana Malone. And then let's see, I occasionally tweet. I don't really, but that's at Nana Malone. And yeah, I'm on TikTok, but I gotta learn it and figure it out because I'm not 15. But that's also at Nana Malone Writer. And then you can join my newsletter at my website, nanamalone.com. And that's where you can find me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
On the interwebs.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, we've had a great time. So we'll have all the links in the show notes. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast. And we'll see y'all next week. Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.